Hello, and thank you for joining us for this episode of Into the Killing. For today's episode, we're going back to October 2006. On October 9th, 2006, North Korea conducted its first ever nuclear tests. That same day, Google purchased YouTube for $1.65 million. It turned out to be a smart purchase. In 2020, YouTube generated $19 billion in revenue. On October 29th, 2006, the top movie at the box office was the third movie in the Saw franchise. On that day, the number one song was Moneymaker by Ludacris, featuring Pharrell Williams. That day, two men were doing some target practice on an oil field just outside of Kilgore, Texas. Then they smelled some smoke. They went looking for the source and discovered a fire was burning. On the ground at the base of the fire, there appeared to be a mannequin with some wood on it. They got a closer look and realized it was a human body. They called 911. The fire department and the police arrived on the scene shortly afterward. Beneath the body was some wood, and some wood had been piled on top of it. Near the body was an empty gas can. The body had no identification on it. It was estimated that the fire was only started a few minutes before the body was found. So the police were able to recover the victim's jeans and a purple sweater. In the pocket of the jeans there was $40, so the police did not think that the victim was murdered over a robbery. However, the fire had done enough damage to their face to make them unrecognizable. In fact, the police didn't even know the sex of the victim. The medical examiner determined that it was a young woman. It was initially believed that she was in her late teens or early 20s. She was petite, only weighing 100 to 120 pounds, and she was 5'3 to 5'5. She had blonde hair, reddish blonde hair, or she was blonde with red highlights. Or she may have had strawberry blonde hair or light brown hair. The most unique feature about her was her teeth. They were nearly perfect. She didn't have any cavities or fillings. But what was unique was that she still had two baby teeth, which was very unusual for someone her age. The medical examiner was not able to determine how she died other than it was a homicide. Unfortunately, the police had very little evidence to go on regarding the woman's identity. The police thought she probably wasn't local to the area because she didn't match any missing persons reports. The police ran her DNA through their databases, but no match was found. The victim became known as Lavender Doe because of the color of her sweater. The autopsy did provide what the police thought was an important clue. In the victim's body, they found semen. DNA from the semen was run through the system and a match was found. It belonged to a 36-year-old sex offender named Joseph Wayne Burnett. In 1996, Burnett had been arrested for first-degree sexual assault. In January 1997, he was sentenced to 9 years in prison. In May 2007, nearly half a year after the body was found, he was sentenced to 10 years in prison for failing to register as a sex offender. Burnett was questioned, and he admitted to having sex with a young woman whose name he didn't know. But he claimed he didn't kill her. It was believed that the woman was killed sometime between 8:15 p.m. and 10 p.m. the day before her body was found. Burnett had an alibi for the time, so he wasn't charged with any crimes. Sadly, the young woman was buried in a grave with a small headstone that simply read, Jane Doe. In winter 2006, an artist did a rendering of what Lavender Doe might have looked like. It failed to generate any viable leads. Next, the county used an X-ray of the skull to create a clay model of Lavender Doe. Once again, it did not generate any leads. In 2013, the body was exhumed so that a digital, three-dimensional forensic facial reconstruction could be done. But once again, it did not lead to her being identified. Years went by, and no progress was made on the case. Eventually, it caught the attention of amateur online detectives. They discussed her case on forums like WebSleuths and Reddit. In 2017, one of these amateur detectives, Kevin Lord of Killeen, Texas, came across Lavender Doe. At the time, he was trying to match missing women in Texas to Jane Doe's. Lord contacted the lead investigator on Lavender Doe's case, and instead of blowing him off, they actually worked together. Lord then contacted the DNA Doe Project, which is a nonprofit group. Their goal is to identify Jane and John Does through genetic genealogy. The group was founded in 2017 by Dr. Colleen Fitzpatrick, a former rocket scientist, and Dr. Margaret Press, who has a doctorate in linguistics. Both women were very interested in genetic genealogy. Press got involved in genetic genealogy by helping adoptees find their birth parents. In the winter of 2017, she thought that the same process could be used to identify John and Jane Does. So she and Fitzpatrick established the DNA Doe Project. Nearly 6 months after they started the foundation, on March 5, 2018, they made their first identification. It's an odd case that still hasn't been completely solved. On July 30th, 2002, 65-year-old Joseph Noon Chandler III was found dead in his East Lake, Ohio apartment. He had shot himself in the head. When the police found him, Chandler had been dead for about a week. It is believed he died on July 23rd because he had counted down to that date on his calendar. Chandler had recently been diagnosed with colon cancer, which may have influenced him to die by suicide. In Chandler's bank account was about $82,000. The police tried to find an next of kin, and they discovered that the man's real name was not Joseph Noon Chandler III. The real Joseph Noon Chandler III died in a car accident at the age of 8 in Texas in 1945. The dead man had assumed the identity of the dead boy. The police had no idea who he really was until the DNA Doe Project used genetic genealogy to uncover his identity. He was really 75-year-old Robert Ivan Nichols. In 1965, Nichols stopped communicating with his friends and family, and he disappeared. In 1978, he applied for a Social Security card under the Chandler alias. It's a mystery as to why he assumed the new identity. Some people believe that he was a fugitive. Other people believe that he was really the infamous serial killer, the Zodiac. However, this is all just speculation, and much of Nichols' life is still shrouded in mystery. Kevin Lord joined the DNA Doe Project as a volunteer. Lord teamed up with two other volunteers, Missy Koski and Lori Gaff. They asked for donations online to get the DNA retested. Within 4 days, they had raised enough money. However, before they did the testing, there was a massive break in the case. We're just going to take a short break from this episode to bring you word from our sponsor, America's #1 meal kit, HelloFresh. I'm sure a lot of you, like me, are hoping to get together with friends and family this holiday season. But with all the social get-togethers, it's tough to meal plan because life is so hectic. This is why I'm really thankful for HelloFresh because it makes meal planning easy. With their quick and easy meals, 20-minute recipes, or low prep and easy cleanup options, you can get food on the table quicker so you can spend more holiday time with your loved ones. It's also easy to change things like the amount of meals I want for the week, or I can even skip a week at no cost. HelloFresh is also incredibly helpful when it comes to entertaining. They have options like holiday cheese and charcuterie board, and skinny dipped dark chocolate peppermint almonds. If they are anything like their meals, they are probably delicious. Last week I had chorizo tacos with feta and pickled jalapenos, southern spiced chicken with smashed potatoes and garlicky green beans, and French dip burgers with aged cheddar cheese and caramelized onions. You should help yourself out around the holidays and check out America's #1 meal kit for yourself. They have an amazing deal for our listeners. Go to hellofresh.com/criminallylisted14 and use the code criminallylisted14 for up to 14 free meals and 3 free gifts. Once again, go to hellofresh.com/criminallylisted14 and use the code criminallylisted14 for up to 14 free meals and 3 free gifts. On July 24, 2018, 28-year-old Felicia Pearson of Longview, Texas, was reported missing by her mother. The police learned that she was last in the company of a sex offender named Joseph Wayne Burnett. The police learned that Burnett had failed to register as a sex offender. So a warrant for his arrest was issued on July 24, 2018. That same day, Pearson's body was found in a wooded area. The police never released her cause of death. In custody, Burnett confessed to murdering Pearson. He then said he had to get something off his chest. He said that a few years earlier, he had killed a girl and burned her. The detectives knew that he was probably talking about Lavender Doe. After all, it was Burnett's DNA that was found inside of her. So they called the lead detective on the case. Burnett explained to him that in October 2006, he was in a Walmart parking lot. Lavender Doe came up to him and tried to sell him some magazines, but he didn't want them. She then tried to sell him some lingerie of the magazine, and he turned her down again. She asked if he could get into his truck, and he agreed to that. Burnett said that they had consensual sex. Then he discovered she had stolen $40 from him. He became angry, so he said that he strangled her to death with a rope. He let her keep the money because he felt like she had earned it. But Burnett said that he did not know Lavender Doe's real name. He thought her first name might be Ashley. Joseph Wayne Burnett was charged with the murders of Felicia Pearson and Lavender Doe. Kevin Lord said that identifying the killer made things feel more real for him and his teammates. In October 2018, they got the DNA back for the new test. In a public DNA database, they found a first cousin of Lavender Doe's parents. They thought it was a huge break, but this led to 27 first cousins who might be Lavender Doe's parents. They started tracing the family trees of each of the cousins. Eventually, they got to a distant cousin of the original relative they found. Her name was Robin, and she had a daughter. They couldn't find any records of the daughter after 2006, which is when Lavender Doe was murdered. But it turned out that Robin was dead. She had died in September 2006 at the age of 50 from an illness. She had died a month before Lavender Doe was murdered. Lord and his team found a relative of Robin, and they asked if anyone in their family was missing. He said that his cousin ran away years ago and they never saw her again. He put them in contact with his cousin's half-sister, Amanda. Amanda went online and saw the clay model of Lavender Doe. She immediately knew that was her missing half-sister. Amanda agreed to send Kevin Lord a sample of her DNA. In late January 2019, they got the results of the DNA tests. After 12 years, they had finally discovered Lavender Doe's identity. She was Dana Lynn Dodd, and when she was murdered, she was 21 years old. Dana had lived an unstable life. Her mother, Robin, abandoned her when she was young. She would live with her father and his family members. His father never stayed with a woman for very long, so mother figures continually came and left. Eventually, Dana ended up living with Amanda and her husband in Jacksonville, Florida. When Dana was 16, she got a serious boyfriend. Amanda didn't approve of the boyfriend, so she sent Dana to live with her brother John. John also didn't approve of the boyfriend. At some point, Dana broke up with her boyfriend. Then she found a job selling magazine subscriptions and other products. The job also offered her an opportunity to travel around the country. Unfortunately, these traveling magazine sales crews trap workers with beatings and get them hooked on drugs. The lead detective on Dana's case called it a form of human trafficking. When Dana was 18, she left Florida to start working for the magazine company. The last time anyone heard from her was a few months before she was murdered in the summer of 2006. She was asked to come home, but she said no. It's believed that the magazine subscription crew is how she ended up in Longview, Texas, where she encountered Joseph Burnett, who killed her. In September 2019, Dana's family traveled to her grave in Longview, Texas. They decided to leave her buried there. During her life, she had been shipped around so much and never settled anywhere, but in death, she became a part of Longview. So they decided to let her rest there. They replaced her grave marker with one that bears her name. In December 2020, Joseph Burnett pleaded guilty to the murders of Felicia Pearson and Dana Dodd. For each murder, he was given a 50-year sentence. At the time of this recording, Burnett is 44 years old. He is serving a sentence at the Alfred D. Hughes Unit in Gatesville, Texas. He'll be able to apply for parole in July 2043 when he'll be 65 years old. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. Our producer, fact checker, and sound designer was Danelle Cloutier. Recently, we launched a new channel called Paranormally Listed. On that channel, we discuss ghostly hauntings, UFO sightings, encounters with cryptids, and other unexplained phenomenon. You can find it at youtube.com/paranormallylisted. And of course, we still have our original true crime channel, Criminally Listed. We have over 325 videos featuring bizarre but true crime stories. You can find it at youtube.com/criminallylisted. Well, that's all for today. Thanks again for listening.